Well, we're so pleased that Dr. Connett could join us in our efforts to help Cortland to become more aware of the huge issue of the ash for trash ash landfill. What a really, really bad idea it is, and that there are alternatives that we need to work towards as a community. We need to open up this process and provide opportunities for full public participation. So this is the beginning of several events that we have envisioned to help our community come up with a much better solution than leaving a legacy of a toxic ash dump for the generations to come.
Ron Rocco, Cortlandville citizen.
And Paul Connett, former professor of chemistry at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York.
Is this an opportunity for you to meet with the community here?
Absolutely, absolutely. What I hope to come out of this, I don't think that this ash landfill idea is so preposterous. I don't think it's going to fly. But what I hope my presence will be is to get more people getting a better waste management plan for the county, which moves us closer to sustainability. You know, the issue has changed. The issue has changed. In the 20th century, it was all about toxicity, when you talked about incineration or gasifiers or what have you. Today, in the 21st century, it's about sustainability. And let's be clear about this. If you burn something, if you destroy something with the gasification or burn it in an incinerator, what have you got to do? You've got to go all the way back to square one. You've got to extract all those raw materials again. You've got to ship them around the world. You've got to manufacture the new products, and you've got to ship those as well. Yeah. There's a huge amount of pollution, a huge amount of energy use in all of that, and none of that energy use can be got back with an incinerator or gasification. Whereas, if you reuse objects, if you recycle materials, if you compost the organics, you can save that energy. So there's far more energy to be saved by recycling than from burning. I'll give you an example. A common plastic, PET plastic, we use it for disposable water bottles. 26 times more energy is saved by recycling that plastic compared to burning it. So the idea of incineration is obsolete in the 21st century, and the incinerator in Syracuse should be allowed to die a natural death. It's losing money. Yeah. It's losing money. They don't know where to put the ash. Let it die.
You know, this was built, I believe, around 1990, and then it went, it went out of business because apparently they didn't have enough trash. Mm-hmm. And I guess the county restricts them as far as, being able to import trash. And
yes.
Now the county legislature in Onondaga County is attempting to get this through the legislature to allow them to expand to other counties. Our concern here, or at least my concern as a citizen, is, when that stuff which is put in lime or cement, when that cement degrades, then it all goes into, the drinking water supply because it's sitting up on the recharge area of the aquifer here, which, I'm very concerned about. And, the heavy metals, cadmium and lead and mercury, I mean, that's not going to everybody replaces their sidewalk. I mean, how can the legislature, or how can anyone think that this is going to stay in cement forever?
Absolutely. You can't deny that the incinerator industry has got better at protecting the air. They still have problems with mercury and how reliable their dioxin numbers are because they measure them so seldom is a question. And we have a whole issue of nanoparticles, but they've got better than they were 20 years ago. But the catch-22 is that now those toxics are in the ash, and the ash has always been the Achilles heel of the incinerator industry. I remember back in 1986, the vice president of Ogden Martin, which became eventually Covanta, which runs the Syracuse incinerator, he said, if ash is declared hazardous waste, it's finito, morte, the end of the incinerator industry. If we have to send our ash to hazardous waste landfills. And for the next few years, they tried every which way to make sure that this ash was classified as non-toxic. And they do things now which are totally unscientific, but they get by. So they're classifying this ash as non-toxic. Let me tell you what they do in Germany. In Germany and Switzerland, they put the fly ash, that's the ash that's collected in the air pollution control devices, very toxic. Don't even bother to test it. They send that, they put it into nylon bags and send it to salt mines, just as how they treat low-level radioactive waste. In Japan, many of the incinerators vitrify this ash, make it into a glass. Now what we do is we mix the fly ash with the bottom ash together before it's tested. And what happens with the leachate test that they use, there's enough lime in the fly ash to protect the combined ash from failing the test.
Wow.
Because the pH, I know this is going to be a bit technical, but the pH that you end up with, about pH 8, 9, is the level of acidity where lead is least soluble. So if you took that ash and tested it with water, it would fail because it's such a high pH, the lead comes out.
Right.
If you did the old test, the old EP tox test, which was being done in the 80s and led to that statement from Sussman, if you force the pH down to pH of 4 and the lead again comes out. But with this dodge of mixing the bottom ash with the fly ash, the lime in the fly ash is protecting not only the fly ash from failing, but also the bottom ash from failing. So it's a complete scam. It's an absolute scam, and it's allowed this pretense that this ash is non-toxic and can go to regular landfills, used as landfill cover in some cases, going into regular landfills like in your case. As soon as the rain or melting snow hits that ash, you're going to start leaching out the lead. There's no question about that.
Yeah. And sealing it in cement is temporary, if anything?
Temporary, absolutely temporary. And heaven help us if anybody tries to use that cement.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Love Canals took how long to come to the people's attention? 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, and all those problems developed. I am concerned about that developing here.
Absolutely.
And I can't see anyone allowing, these heavy metals encased in cement to be, to be supposedly inert. I asked the legislators, I said, have you ever had your sidewalk replaced?
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's what's going to happen with this stuff. It's going to degrade, and all that stuff is going to go into all the rivulets that feed our drinking water supply. And I don't understand how they could even consider this. And why isn't Onondaga County, do you think, dumping this in their own county?
Good question. Well, and that's the thing to remember. And what you're saying is this. These things are toxic forever. We're talking elements here. Lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, chromium. These are all elements. They are never going to disappear. So it's just a question of time. And we already have a situation in our inner cities where people that come in with the old housing and gentrify them, one of the first things to do is to sand down the old paintwork. Well, 40, 50 years ago, there was lead in that paint. So as they sand down that paint, their kids come down with lead poisoning. So this notion of cavalierly passing on these permanent toxic problems to the future is unacceptable. And the zero waste strategy takes this into account. The zero waste strategy says you got to get to the front end. Stop using cadmium, lead, mercury, arsenic, chlorinated products as best you can. Let's find the alternatives now so that we don't keep producing this legacy for future generations to deal with.
When you say legacy, it seems as if the county legislature is taking a look at receiving 30 pieces of silver for future problems that won't be around when those legislators are around.
It's a double whammy. It's a double whammy. The waste management practices in Cortland County right now are pretty feeble. You're not doing any composting, there's minimal amount of recycling. So you're delivering a double whammy to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren here. Not only are you wasting their resources, but in exchange you're leaving them this toxic legacy called an ash landfill. That's not acceptable on either front. So coming back to where I started, I hope as a result of my efforts and the efforts of the local citizens here, we not only stop this silly ash landfill proposal and allow the Syracuse incinerator to die a natural death, but also that we will be left with Cortland with a much more positive, a win-win situation. More jobs, more small business opportunities, a better waste management, and moving this county in a sustainable direction. That would be worth working for.
Very good. Well, we're very happy that you're here, and it's nice to see you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you too.